Sonos Libera, the Start Listening Podcast, a journey through sound, acoustics, and hearing sense. Please use headphones for a better listening experience. 3, 2, 1, recording. Start
Indeed.
listening. First chapter, first talk.
Yeah.
What is this all about?
It's just
Drink
having
a
a
beer.
beer, having a coffee,
Drink
having
a
a
coffee.
beer, and talking about pro audio in general, I think.
Pro audio.
Yeah.
It's like a very broad topic, isn't it?
Not really a very small market.
It's very small market, but it affects many, many parts of our lives. Actually, one of the topics that I wanted to discuss today, today is the first chapter, right? So why don't we start with the basics? How
Basics
many
as in what is sound? What is...
Okay, so what do you understand for basics? Like we always talk about sound, right? Sound. When you are a kid, this sounds this way. Let's talk about soundscaping. Like let's think about how is the sound around us, right? Like the sound we feel every day when, let's say, since we are kids, right? I wanted to talk about this theme first, just because I feel like during all of our lives, like since we are kids until we grow up, there's nobody really teaching or shaping our experience with sound and acoustics as it should be. And I just mentioned the keyword, acoustics. Actually, in fact, we wanted to call this thing like "What the heck are acoustics?" Right?
Yeah,
This first chapter, what the heck are acoustics? So, what the heck are acoustics? I mean, when we are kids, and then you have something like your parents say, "Oh, there's a lot of echo here," and then you feel like echo.
Echo.
What's that? Like how you feel? When is the first time you had that kind of memories to start feeling things with sound around you?
I've got to think about it now. I didn't think about it yesterday.
Think about it.
I mean, for me, of course, it's that first echo perception,
Mm-hmm.
but I wouldn't consider that to be acoustics, so to speak. Acoustics is more kind of applied. At that point, it's just sound perception. It's just
Mm-hmm.
realizing what's happening in the natural world.
Mm-hmm.
Acoustics can be very broad topic, right? It can be psychoacoustics, it can be electroacoustics, it can be anything. But when it comes to sound perception, it's just, that's the first thing, is just saying echo into a large volume of air.
But are we taught
What it is.
sound perception correctly by our parents, families, friends, teachers? Are we taught correctly? I mean, when you are, for example, I mean, my son, or your son, they're pretty much the same age. He starts to feel this phenomenon, right? Like echo or reverberation, and he wonders, like, for whatever reason. I mean, probably he is good, has good ears, and he says, like, "What's that? What happens?" And his curiosity starts to kick in. He's like 2.5 years, right? Not yet. How you answer those questions and how we've been answered? Because of course our kids will have perhaps hopefully a more accurate answer, right? Because our profession.
Well, I mean, the easiest answer is that's where the architect fucked up, son.
Yeah, usually, like, why is this so wrong? Why
Yeah.
this sounds not good? But you wouldn't say so in a cathedral, right? And probably
true.
that could be a large church or a large cathedral. That would be your, perhaps when you were a kid, no? One of your first experiences with reverberation or large reverberation times, right?
Yeah, I mean,
they didn't fuck it up, really. I mean,
they did
a
it
very
correct
good
for the time,
job.
yeah. Exactly.
So what will be your first experience that you will remember, like something that really sticks in your memory, like, I remember that.
My memory is very bad nowadays.
Okay. You're drinking beer.
I mean, like, obviously I remember, I mean, I don't remember the location like what it looked like or anything, but I remember going into places and saying echo, and that's it. You just say echo and wait for the echo to come back.
Well, that's a very nice
it,
phenomenon, right? It's a nice experience as a kid. I think I mentioned to you the other day when we were talking about preparing this first talk, like I have a very clear memory of having just right outside of my bedroom window in my house, I have like one massive concrete wall from a warehouse or something like that. I can't remember what was it. My parent, I must be that time like maybe 4 or 5 years old, and I remember my parents say, "Hey, bring the head up, shout there, and say echo, same as you, right?" And then you just get this massive slap back right into your face, and you feel like, wow, this is amazing, because it came back very loud, and it was me talking from that wall. That's that experience. And of course, as I told you before, I also being Catholics, a part of religion, whatever, I've been in churches and cathedrals, even when you visit places around, and also you feel that immensity, that spaciousness, and you're in an
overwhelming feeling of
like you feel like a very
another
very
body
small, and everything is dark, and everything is above you and trying to feel you like very small, and you are guilty, and you have to be humble down. I mean, it's not like that, but the feeling, it's amazing, right? It's kind of
definitely
how it shapes your behavior, just the space, right?
Well, I guess I don't know if it's from the acoustics or from the place itself, but you always feel like you have to be quiet just to avoid any reverb, or to it's just from the place itself. I don't know.
That's funny, right? Like, but naturally, when you go into these places, the first thing that you realize is you
shut up.
Just shut up.
Yeah.
Right. No matter what nationality you are, well, let's keep jokes aside here, but usually, people when you come to the churches, kind of everybody respects them and kind of like being quiet. So, why is that? It's difficult to explain.
It can't be from the acoustic. I mean, it could be from the acoustics, but it could just be from the feeling of the place itself, the nature of the place itself. For example, in a mosque, like in large mosques, it also happens. I guess when you have a big dome and there as well, then it can happen. The same thing doesn't happen when you go into a convention hall. Like if you go into a convention hall with those massive reverb times, you feel like you have to be loud just to excite the place.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know.
I think that, and it's something that we have discussed in the company many times, right? And I think probably one of the ethos of the company was to match a visual feeling, what is coming through our eyes and what is being received by our ears, trying to make it match. So you see this larger space, and of course you feel like it's a larger space, and we say dual colors, and all the images and religious stuff, and kind of like makes you feel quiet immediately. But I think it's both senses combination. And I think they will not. It will not be the same if you remove one of them.
Of course, Like if you go into a place like these, a lot of modern churches, like you go in there and they have all the sound deadening, they have like a new fancy sound system and all that kind of stuff, and you don't feel that same need to be quiet, even though it's a place which is supposedly meant to be the same.
Perhaps they have better acoustics than before. But acoustics before they were not a mistake, right? They were given a purpose. Anyway, I think that just wrapping up a little bit on the first topic of what I wanted to discuss is like these first experiences that we are being taught or being told that, okay, this is echo, but nobody come and say, oh, this happens because that material or that shape or a combination of both creates a very strong reflection right in your face or whatever you are, right? Nobody say us. They say, okay, the sound bounces. But we are not told why.
See, on the south coast of England, we have these large, like concrete reflectors. I think they were I think they were to amplify the sound of the planes coming across the ocean in World War II or something like that.
Oh, that's nice.
At least for those, we were taught, I think, from a reasonably young age, like, okay, they're meant to reflect the sound to here so that it can be detected more easily.
Never heard that before.
Yeah. I can try and find it.
Yeah, find it out. Find some pictures.
Yeah.
Which part of England is that? Which part of England is that?
On the south coast, on the Channel,
Okay.
like opposite to France.
Oh yeah, because the Germans, they're supposed to come from that part, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I never seen that. Let me see.
These things.
Oh wow.
Oh, for World War One.
Let
Sorry.
me see.
Yeah, go for it.
Wow, acoustic mirrors.
Mm.
Okay, this is interesting because this is something we can talk about. And talking about concave shapes, right, or parabolic shape. Never seen this before. Never knew that they were. This is very good. So they have somebody hook up there, or they have some sort of like a microphone, put them there.
I think they must have had a microphone of some kind, or just
very
a
interesting.
guy sleeping in the middle or something.
Definitely he will wake up, right?
Yeah.
So what we're talking about, it's like shapings in our spaces that it will transform the way we hear the sound.
Yeah.
And talking about shapings and how we transform the sound, how has been done in the past. We just mentioned the cathedrals. We just mentioned this. I wanted to talk to you, and this could be this could be another topic, like how Romans and how Greeks before Romans, they were using, without knowing, acoustics to their to their benefit. Like they like all this theatrical performances.
Yep.
And all the amphitheaters, and some of them are very well kept still.
Yeah.
They were massive places. They were like 70, 80 meters places from the stage all the way up to the highest seating. Yet, of course, they don't have speakers, but they could listen supposedly well. I mean, nowadays you can go to the stage, speak, and somebody sitting up there, it will listen to you. And that was by playing with the reflections. We will not go into the details here. I think the topic of the concept here is not going to the technical details, but it's basically playing with surfaces, where we put them, which material we use to put them, and how they, without knowing, they by experimentation maybe. But
I don't think it's a case they didn't know. I think it's a case of trial and error, and they have to.
Like build some amphitheaters.
Well, they could build a lot. The Romans built a huge amount, but no, I think they must have had a good idea to start with, and then just scaled it up until you get to the very large places. Otherwise, you have your head chopped off.
You were playing literally. You were playing with your life.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe we had to apply some of the principles in the past. No, we are not trying to. We are not instigating violence here.
Actually, that's one memory I do have. Is I went to see an aria in one of these Roman amphitheaters. I can't remember which one. It was very good, like very nice acoustics.
Yeah.
Really, really good for the first hour, and then fell asleep because it was so boring.
You need some. Perhaps it was a program, not the acoustics.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was when I was like 6 years old, I think.
Wow, that maybe explains it.
Yeah.
But what is funny to think is like 2,000 years back, these guys were up there, putting really large daily performances, pretty much about politics, about life, philosophy. And they were also using, especially the Greeks, and also the Romans, they were using this mask with the special openings for the mouth, which we call it horns nowadays. And we put them on the speakers. And as you say, perhaps knowing it they were achieving incredible results, and they were really designing the spaces and positioning the surfaces carefully to achieve this result, because they didn't have any other means to amplify and to pass the message relatively uniform and with enough loudness to everyone in the audience. And another thing that they always take in consideration, and sometimes we don't can pass really overlooked here, is like the background noise. So they were putting all these amphitheaters usually in the middle of nowhere. So they were far apart from the cities, although the cities were not noisy as they are now.
Exactly.
But they were playing with two main things: background noise, acoustic principles, right?
Yeah.
But what did we do bad in these 2,000 years?
What that we're still not doing it right.
to arrive till today, that we are not doing it. Some places, not everywhere in the world, but we are not doing it right yet.
I don't think it's a case of what we did wrong. Is like what has happened that back then they placed so much attention on it, and nowadays it becomes the last thing that you pay attention to in any typical installation. You know, for most installation nowadays, they just say, "Oh yeah, just spray some foam on the ceiling, it'll be all right." That's your acoustic treatment.
Okay.
What happened to get to that point that we don't, or people don't care about it now?
We don't put like eggshells, carton shells, and we used to play with those when we were teenagers as well. And we say, put it and it will sound better.
What is better?
Let's go play to the room and let's put some eggshells and it will be better. Without knowing, right? So how can we pass in 2,000 years of evolution from
and get to such
doing theatrical performances at 80 meters to go to put eggshells in a room?
I don't know. I mean, eggshells in a room is... I think it's us wanting to address a problem with no budget, right?
Or no knowledge.
No knowledge, no budget. I think if there was the knowledge and the budget there, then that would have kind of developed into a very good sounding space. So the intention is correct, but for the majority of places, the intention is not correct. If you're not, well, I mean, there's a kind of that feeling in the back of the mind where, okay, this is a large space, we should do some acoustic treatment, and then it just gets left to the very end. Like we had a hotel project where you did an acoustic design, you specified all the materials, and it gets to the end and they just say, no, it costs too much, let's just put some metal sheet on the roof and it'll be fine.
Yeah, and then what you need an acoustic consultant for, right?
Exactly.
And what you pay an acoustic consultant for if you are not going to follow the advice. I mean, this is a topic that, we can touch it later on, but it was more like, I think we'll leave it for later on when we talk about audiovisual or electroacoustics and we mix both things. So, do you think the misconceptions that are created in acoustics are because we don't really know? So what I'm trying to link here is like, okay, we are in the year 2021, right? And, we have all the social media, we have access to information more than ever before any human being had, perhaps more than what we need, definitely. And all these guys in 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, these Greeks and Romans were able to apply very basic principles, follow very basic principles, achieve great results. And nowadays, with all the technology we have, we are not, some places in the world, not everywhere, we are not able to reach that. And what I wanted to say, it's like, first of all, we talk about how we feel on the spaces, and we say like, yeah, our parents, if they don't have knowledge, they will say, yeah, that's an echo, or that's you go to a cathedral and say, oh yes, a lot of echo, but it actually is not echo, right? It has another term. So I was wondering, is this a problem on education? I mean, is it a problem like how we look at sound compare with other senses. Like the comparison, let's say, about colors. Okay, when you are in the school, color, shapes, you know what colors with shapes we have, and then you play with it. You do things on your arts class, especially when I was in the school. I'm a little bit old for that. Or food, right? So you can, what is acid, what is sweet, and you mix and you cook and you do this. But with sound, we look into music. We said yesterday, yes, people learn music. People can learn music from very early stages, but music are not acoustics. Music is not how sound behaves. It's not soundscaping. It's not how a material works, how a reflection can ruin your experience in a restaurant, right? And the question is, it's so easy, right? It's actually in acoustics, it's not so complicated. So I was wondering, is this a lack of, like, we ignore it? I mean, and that's a conversation we have before too.
I mean, I don't know how it's been for other people within this field, but for me personally, so I learnt music from quite a young age. And then for me, the step to learn more was just wanting to know more about how my instrument was working, how my, like, for example, the trumpet or the drums, like what was happening when I hit the skin of the drum, what made it make sound and what made it make it that way. In school, you would learn just like a larger surface will make a lower sound. That's it. That's the extent of what you learned.
I haven't even, I mean, I can't remember now, but I think I've never been taught that. Even I was studying also music since, I think, 6-7 years old, and nobody told me, like, a large membrane will produce lower frequencies. Nobody told me that, like that, for example.
For me, I remember it very clearly. It was a project. It would be in year 10. So that was like 15 years old, 14, 15 years old. That's when you could first start making some choices about what you wanted to study, essentially. So the first project I had in physics at that time was to see how the length and the tension on a string would affect the pitch. So at 14 years old, I was trying to learn exactly what they hadn't taught me, essentially. So all of that essentially came from music, went through a kind of stage where it was wanting to know more about acoustics related to that music. From there, it would go to learning about timbre and all that kind of stuff. And from there into university, where it would be acoustics and music together. But for anyone not interested in music in the first place, I don't know why they would ever kind of want to go down that path unless it's for another reason.
Yeah, but that's what I was mentioning to you. Like, you are focusing on music, and then you want to go down the music path, but sound as a whole, or acoustics. Let's talk about acoustics, because that's the name of this first talk, right? Acoustics, even the word acoustics, it's kind of confusing. Like very exotic, right? Like acoustics. I'm acoustician. Oh, what? What are you doing? Acoustician? What's that? Yeah, I've studied physics acoustics. Yeah, basically how sounds behaves. I mean, I don't mean that everyone knows how physically all the mathematical formulation, but we all know that if we have a mirror and you put a ray of light, it will reflect. But we don't all know that if we have a hard surface and we send sound directly at certain lengths, we will have a reflection. Not everyone knows, right? But it sounds very obvious for the lighting, right? Or if we have a prism.
Sounds obvious for sound now.
It sounds very obvious for sound. We put the analogy with light, right? Or
Exactly.
if you have a prism and you pass light through it, you will scatter because you reflect different wavelengths, etc., etc.
Mhm.
And sound will produce a scattering as well. It depends on surfaces and shapes and etc., etc., and wavelengths, right? So why, again, it's we missing that part. It's been totally ignored. I don't know why. I mean, it's like, especially when, as we say at the beginning, sound and acoustics, or sound perception, or acoustics. Let's say acoustics. Let's talk about broad acoustics, right? Because this, again, let's stick to the name of the podcast or this talk, right? Acoustics, right? In any of its forms, right? Let's talk about psychoacoustics.
Mm-hmm.
It affects us a lot.
Yeah.
Psychologically, you feel bad. You're break with your girlfriend, and then you start to listening sad songs, and then a few days back you feel better, and then you start listening rock and roll, and or you go to the gym, or you go to run, or do your favorite exercise, and you put the music that pumps you up, right?
Mm-hmm.
It affects us a lot. But why we ignore it? Why, since we are kids, we are not properly told what's going on with very easy and basic acoustic stuff? I mean, in your case, you were lucky, but as you say, maybe you had to choose that path. You had to choose the path of going through music, and then, yes, with the music, you will learn that. But what we're trying to say here is music, it's a kind of, I will say, civilized acoustics, right? We shape it. It's a human
Acoustics with lots of rules and regulations.
Yeah, music is a human thing. It's a regulation there, and it's something that's being shaped by humans, right?
Yeah.
The melodies and all the scales that we currently have, it's all shaped by human beings.
Mm-hmm.
But acoustics, there are no there are basic rules, but soundscaping, how sound behaves, what acoustics are, it's
physical rules.
It's physical rules, and nobody teach it.
Yeah. I mean, there is education from a certain point of time, but it's not education that everyone is forced to do, essentially. I mean, if you go to university, you can learn as much as you want about all this stuff up to a certain point where it's unknown,
And even talking before university, talking about, as I say, a 5-6 years old kid, a mirror, everyone put a torch and you reflect.
Yeah. I don't know.
We're missing that, right?
I don't know if it should, I'm not expecting a kid to say, how to put it?
Explain the physical phenomenon.
Yeah, you'd expect them to say, yeah, that's a mirror, so the sound will reflect. That's fine. But you don't get to that stage of saying, oh, yeah, the reflection coefficient of this mirror will be blah, blah,
absolutely,
blah,
that's true. And I agree with you. But when sound, when you face reverberation time, we call it wrongly. We call it echo. Sorry, I keep saying echo. I don't know why. Echo. It's more like American way to say in English.
No.
Echo.
It's just a made up word.
Okay, I made up word. Sorry, I'm Spanish. We call it echo, right? And call it wrongly echo. So that's not the right term for it. Why nobody teaches the right words? Because reverberation is reverberation. Echo is echo. Flutter echo is a very crazy phenomena. And I mean, not sure how many of the audience has experienced before flutter echo. Maybe we can just do
I think for this audience, probably a very high percentage.
We're trying to be broad audience here. So flutter echo is when you have sound at usually a high frequencies bouncing between two hard parallel surfaces, right? And there's no absorption there, and then the sound will keep bouncing and produces a very characteristic ring or ping sound at the end of the reverberation. So how to put it? those experiments, so to demonstrate those phenomena, is not a difficult thing. Or for example, we count when we have a thunderstorm, right? We count how
much time for the
how much
distance,
time, yeah. But nobody explains. I mean, yeah, maybe you get those when you're a teenager and you study science.
I mean, they would never tell you. At least in my experience, they would say this amount of time is this, how far this is this distance away.
Mm-hmm.
They would never say, it's because sound travels at this speed.
Yeah.
You'd never know.
You had
are the high frequencies coming faster and the lows coming slower or something? Is that why it's arriving in different time?
But it wouldn't be a nonsense to be taught that.
Yeah.
And to be told. I mean, it's not that complicated, and I'm pretty sure. I mean, we know there's many ways to explain it in a plain, easy way that everyone could understand. And what I'm trying to say here, or what I'm trying to arrive at the conclusion from my side at least, is like, are the mistakes that we all see happening today in some of the spaces that we visit the most? Well, just because of obvious circumstances, we cannot go to an airport that often, right? But we know what happens in an airport, right?
Yeah, you get lots of Bose 802s stacked up, and you have a mess.
And we know what happens in many restaurants as well. We know what happens in many hotel ballrooms, and then we know what happens in some churches, modern churches, and we know what happened in some temples here in Thailand as well. And I wonder if this somehow related with this lack of education on the perception. Like, hey guys, open your ears. That is also some of our ethos, right? Close your eyes, open your ears, start listening, and try to realize and explain all these things, because somehow I feel that sound, and there is a good reasons for that. Sound is treated something like a myth. Something is like very ethereal, like something we cannot see, we cannot know.
Yeah.
Right?
It's something you have to have a guru to come and fix, right?
Correct.
But for those places you mentioned just now, if we take airports as one example, I think it's not a case of people don't know, they do the bare minimum to get a certain STI and say, okay, that's enough.
What is STI?
We are not
suppose we were talking about. Yeah, we will talk about how we measure acoustics, right? So we have on the acoustic world, we have some certain parameters that we can objectively evaluate via simulations, like software predictions, right? Same as we have our forecast prediction, or via measurement, like a real actual measurement with software and some other tools, right? So STI stands for Speech Transmission Index, or intelligibility. Here's the word, intelligibility. Another very long word that not many people, when we drop it sometimes, the people look at us like,
that's just because we're talking to Thai speakers.
Yeah.
Like it makes...
Yeah, sure, I get it.
It makes sense for most English speakers, I think.
But even in Spanish, I think if I talk to some Spanish, intelligible, I think they will kind of like, something that you can understand, right?
Yeah, exactly. But you have no idea what will affect that intelligibility.
Correct. Yeah. Is it that hard to... I mean, again... I think, sorry, I interrupt you about the airports. I think you should...
Can't remember now.
You say that those spaces were not designed with bare minimum STI.
Yeah, so like designed to a budget to get a bare minimum of intelligibility. Whereas some of the places, like some temples you mentioned, they're designed to a budget without any idea that intelligibility even exists. On the other hand, you got some places like some churches which will go to great lengths to get high intelligibility. So a lot of it does depend on the awareness of the project owner, for example. if they want to spend the money, if they know about a problem and are willing to spend the money, it can be fixed.
Yeah, but again, okay, so we spoke about our first experiences, right? And like how we had to sort of manage to understand what's going on. And then we talk about, are we missing something? Are we not teaching enough about sound phenomena, about acoustics, right? Are we not teaching just the basic of how the acoustic works, how sound works, right? In our daily lives, in a very easy to understand manner. And then if we carry on, also we're talking about what happened in the past, that the people where they had no means, so they had to definitely apply, experience, and they had to really be careful of what they're doing. And nowadays, with all this information and all this, technological means that we have, we still making these mistakes. And again, it's like, are we losing this connection are we disconnecting the ears and let, the visual rule us, for instance, or I don't want to...
Most of the time, yeah.
But most of the time it happens, right? So what you just say is like, okay, they design an airport to the bare minimum budget to achieve a certain STI. I think in some cases it's true, some cases it's not true. I think there are some airports that have a really carefully crafted designs. Actually, in fact, I have worked in some of them. I have been lucky to work in some airport projects in the past. But we know some public stations of mass transportation that lack of this care, right? And again, it's not about the owner, it's not about the government, it's about common sense. It's like about a common thing. Like you don't go to a restaurant. I mean, maybe the restaurant is a difficult example, but okay, let's go to an airport. We try to make the airport look nice and have light and be open spaces, and we care about the quality of the air, about the hygiene measurements, and people's flow and all this kind of stuff. So we are looking after how we feel on the space, from our visual point of view, like airy, big, beautiful glass, this, that. We can sit down in the lounge. We can see the airplanes up and down. About the flow, like basically your senses, like your feeling, like your physical feeling, like how you walk, how you feel through the pathways and all the possibilities that you have to from the moment you entered until the moment you board into the plane. But we don't look into sound on those. I don't think, I mean, I might be wrong. I don't know. But I can tell you, I haven't been in an airport where, since the moment the acoustic experience, and this is something that I particularly feel, and perhaps you as well, the acoustic experience, since the moment you come in to the moment you board the plane, it keeps changing. Of course, the visual experience keeps changing too, but it kind of more consistent, like it is really kind of good, relatively good, but the acoustic experience, it's sometimes could be terrible. And we're talking about if something happens, talking about, whatever emergency situation, we have evacuation systems, and the first thing that the evacuation system will do is emit certain messages, sound messages. And if the acoustics are not carefully treated, we'll have an issue there. And not all the areas in an airport, or let's say an airport, we're talking about that, are not carefully considered.
Well, they should be.
It should be, but they are not. And you say it's crafted to the bare minimum. And
I mean, thinking about airports in the past, I think Singapore is relatively good for it.
It's pretty good. You have
carpet everywhere. But Heathrow Terminal 5, I think it is, the one with the big area in the middle, is horrible for it. It's you can't, as soon as you go into the large hall in the center, you can't hear anything pretty much. And
won't you say that's dangerous?
Yeah, to a certain degree. But
I mean, you will run if you see people running, right? They will not stay still, but
but then in other situations,
I'm not talking about emergency. I'm talking about you miss your flight.
It's an emergency.
That's an emergency,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, of course, everyone knows for those kind of areas it makes complete sense to have a proper STI value for those areas. But in situations where something like that is not implemented, like in temples over here, generally they don't have any...
Or airports over here.
Yeah. You don't have any emergency system. You don't have any any systems at all, should we say. But they still expect to have good sound. So...
Okay. So we're talking now about misconceptions.
Yeah.
Audiovisual. Speakers. You want to talk about electroacoustics?
So it can be even acoustics. You expect to have...
good sound from a place that is not been designed to have a good sound.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, should we say?
And
I mean, the same for an airport, right? The warehouse of an airport is not designed to have good sound, but you need to have good sound there.
But my question still remains on: is this lack of care? Like we all care, and especially nowadays, like we all sliding pictures on all these social media platforms, and it's all coming through the eyes, right? It's all coming through the eyes, eyes.
Brighter and brighter every day.
Brighter, colorful, beautiful things, beautiful crafted items, beautiful people, people with traveling in beautiful places, and it's all this information. We are totally receiving constant bombs of beauty, right, through our eyes, but then we go and listen to MP3 music.
No, it's getting better nowadays.
Yeah, I think
We had a period of darkness for quite a while, but it's starting to get better.
Can you realize for how long? I mean, okay, so you and I know it. Like, now, I saw that Earthworks Audio, the microphone brand that we carry, just post something, and I think it was on LinkedIn, saying that it's a public announcement that Apple Music will be hosting non-compressed formats and kind of like a high resolution music in general. Let's say I
think they're doing lossless but not high res just yet. So
they're preparing for it, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, all of our devices can support it nowadays, so why not?
But what about your high res camera in your phone and your shitty microphone? I mean, it's good for us because we still have a market to push for this kind of beautiful crafted items.
It's getting better. I mean,
yeah, but not at the same level as video does.
Yeah, I guess you've had
photo does.
50 megapixel cameras for quite a while now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've had good microphones, but even in the pro space, some things are still limited to 48K, 24-bit.
But it should be enough. I mean, in the right hands and with the right means and, with a well-picked audio chain, it shouldn't be an issue, right? Yeah. I mean, but it's way much better than record something through your through your microphone on your phone and play through your speakers on your phone. Yeah. I remember, and this is just a little bit of going into a rabbit hole, which is totally different, but I remember when I was living in Spain still, and the smartphones kind of like more commercially available for pretty much everyone, right? And you could see all the kids with the music, playing the music from the smartphone at full volume, blasting it when you were on the train or any of the public transportation. It was like, can you stop it? Yeah. Or at least, first of all, I don't want to listen to your music. Second, it doesn't sound good. Yeah. I mean, maybe if you have a nice speaker, so but you know what I mean, right? However, you take a picture and it will look nice. Yeah. But you will play a song, and if you're not using a relatively good headphones that you have, and some of them are kind of like, but even the source of the music, like you would try to download music listen music through YouTube, or listen to music through Spotify. I'm not sure Spotify exactly which format I reckon it's a compressed format. Unless you choose a dedicated platform for high resolution music. And still nowadays, you have to look for a dedicated platform for high resolution music, right?
Because I think most people who listen to it in the circumstances that they're listening to probably won't be able to tell the difference. It's only when you are able to put on your nice pair of headphones, you're able to listen to it properly rather than through the speakers on your phone, you know.
I will disagree.
Really?
Yeah. Why? Because if your picture is blur, you take a picture and it's blur. Yeah, I mean, some people don't care as well, but if you take a picture and it's blur, you will say, oh, the picture is blur.
Yeah.
It's not nice. Let's repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you play to the music, I'm not sure it is something to do, and it's something to do with the mechanism of how the brain works and how the brain reconstructs missing parts of an audio signal. And that's why MP3 exists, right? It's based on cheating,
filling in the gaps.
Yeah, filling the gaps and cheating and playing with masking, and chopping down frequencies and energy out of there to compress the music more and let the brain do the job, which is amazing, isn't it? But it has reached a point where it's like, well, I mean, yeah, nowadays it's better. We have better speakers, we have better means to reproduce music from the phones or from even the computers or an iPad. You know, it sounds relatively decent, you know, to understand a video call or conversation, right? Yeah. But it's not, right? It's not. It's not at the same level as the video or the picture part or the camera parts are.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I mean.
But then it's also a limitation of the device itself that you're not able to reach those frequencies from like a little speaker this big.
Well, maybe we had to do
carry around some E15s together with your iPad.
I don't mean that, but I don't know. Maybe it's to. You know, we are compromising one of our feelings just because of sizing, and nowadays we can do really good things with it. I mean, it's okay. I mean, latest computers are amazing how they sound compared with a computer like 2 years back, even like 2 years back or 3 years back, right? Yeah. So, yeah, it's funny, and I think that I still have a very serious conviction that for whatever reason, we don't pay attention to hearing. And if we do, we are musicians. Even though some musicians, they don't know what's happening on acoustics in general. Like we're talking about echoes or flutter echoes or reverberation. They know, but let's say if you don't investigate, if you don't go deep into or start to go into that technical terms and study it, nobody will tell you. Yeah. But it's something that is surrounding us every day.
They can identify it very easily. It's just a case of, I think, is not knowing what to call it, essentially. Like, kind of thing happens in studios a lot is you know, the customer will say, I want it to feel a bit more alive. They don't know what alive means. But the studio engineer has to go and say, okay, more alive means I have to do this, to make some changes to make it feel more alive. And the musicians, I think, it's the same way. You know, it sounds like there's too much echo. And the acoustician has to know, okay, too much echo, that means we got this problem, we have to go and fix it like this.
Yeah, I think it's perhaps what you say is using the right, not using the right terms, not using the right words.
Or not knowing the right terms.
Well, eventually not even identifying the phenomena, right? Because a restaurant, how many restaurants you been?
Not many. Not many recently.
Not recently, unfortunately. But how many restaurants you been from 2019 back? Nice restaurants that you sit down with whoever you are in the table with, and you cannot hear a word of the conversation because you are hearing the table sitting down next to you and the table next to that table and the next one to the next one and eventually the table on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
because there's no absorption. It all looks very clean. It looks very cool. Concrete, glass.
Yeah, I think it's
marble.
a problem from the architect, essentially. They all love to use minimalistic materials, have no ceiling, no absorption, glass, concrete everywhere.
Oh, but that's
hard
wrong.
surfaces everywhere.
But
And
but the question is that on the conception of a space, when you wanna go to a restaurant and you wanna have some intimacy, and then you wanna talk to your couple, or you have a business meeting, and you wanna close a deal, or you wanna ask your girlfriend to marry you, it could really ruin the experience. I mean, the restaurant will look definitely, it will look gorgeous, right? Like all these materials we are saying, but we are
like
totally
one
ignoring.
concept. Yeah.
And you don't ask somebody to marry you with the eyes, right? You don't show a picture, marry me. I mean, you can.
Maybe that's the solution.
I mean, probably that's why we saw all these people now just doing it in a more cinematic, more movie way, right? Perhaps they do it because of that. Right? Hey, Acoustics has so what? I'm just gonna ask you marry me with a panel. But, I didn't think about it, but it's funny, right? Yeah, but you know what I mean, right? Like, it's like you are dining in a cave, or you having all these weird interferences and noises coming down right to your table, and then you are not able to have a conversation and to understand what even the person sitting down just in front of you, 1 meter apart of you, is talking to you. Why is that? I mean, and the question is why we overlook into, okay, you go to this restaurant and the food is going to be amazing because it's the chef that has crafted and choose the best raw ingredients and then has cooked in certain way to preserve all the tastes, and then blah blah blah,
and then pair it with the perfect wine,
and then this is the perfect wine, and then you have this architect who has designed the whole space to make you feel like this and that and that, and then it sounds like shit. Isn't ruining the experience. And why don't they spend money on it? And who should pay for it? This is and then we just jump into the electroacoustics topic. This is part from the AV, where we are inquiry as a company, right? And as an engineer, somebody come and say, I need some speakers. And then we go to the restaurant and they say, well, the acoustics are not good. Or we go to the temple, or we go to whatever it is, or the church, or the hotel, or the club, and we say, well, you have a problem with acoustics here, or you fix it with your speakers. And so, well, perhaps we have to fix acoustics first.
You fix the problem at the source.
But then they have fixed a budget on their minds for AV.
So you split the budget for AV and acoustics.
But acoustics are not electroacoustics. Acoustics, it should be a part
of the architect.
It should be a part of the architect.
Or the interior design budget, because they're the one responsible for the materials, right?
Why not?
Well, it should be. But why is it not? I don't know.
I mean, especially here. Let's speak clear. I mean, it's not happening in everywhere. It doesn't happen everywhere in Thailand. I have a few examples that I know and I've been working at. But they really care about it, but not many places. Not that many, as far as I know. I mean, somebody who is watching this, you can say this place to go to have dinner or lunch or dance club or whatever, sounds amazing, just let us know. But maybe we should say that, like, people leave a comment, what is the best sounding place you ever been? So why is not that built in by default on architects program, study program in first place? Second place, or interior designers, and why it's not that considered by interior designers and say, well, look, you want to achieve this, because they always talk about the mood and tone and this and that, and they, again, architects, interior designers, you are interior designer. And interior means everything, means visual, materials, and experience, and sound as well, right? Why that's totally thrown away? Why will it be?
is it something that's hard to sell?
You sell material already, right? I mean, you're selling a wall, you're selling a ceiling,
Yeah.
selling the glass.
Or should it be something that's coming from the manufacturer, like pushing to have kind of proper documentation on each material and make it a standard?
Have it.
Yeah, but I mean, make it a standard specification that they present to every single.
I think that pretty much
every single one.
Well, that's another thing, right? Like, yeah, that's a very interesting topic, and that could be a long one, right? Like, why we had to buy acoustic material, a specific acoustic material, when actually any material has acoustic properties.
Yeah.
For whatever you want to achieve, right?
Exactly.
That's a very nice
it goes
point.
back to the days of egg cartons on the walls. It has a acoustic property. Maybe it's not what we wanted, but
it was cheap.
Yeah.
And it is something.
That's the reason.
Yeah, but it is some. But I'm not entirely sure if I would even, just because of it's cheap, because I think it's a waste of anyway.
Yeah.
It looks so ugly as well.
Cheap, but a waste of money. Yeah.
A waste of money. So my question is like, why? That's a very interesting topic. Why manufacturers of any sort of material don't provide by default, like if it's fire retardant and acoustic properties for absolutely everything? We don't need to go and choose a specific acoustic materials. Perhaps it's not commercially available enough, that information.
Yeah, but it should be. I mean, I think that's the way to.
But again, are we ignoring, are the materials manufacturers ignoring the sound, ignoring acoustics?
Well,
When they didn't, I mean, in the Greeks' time, they knew that highly polished stone, it will reflect the sound, and it will send sound together with the voice all over the place, and they will combine several reflections, and they will be able to hear. But nowadays we're using reflections to basically destroy the right. I mean,
yeah. But going back to what you're saying on architects, like, really, I think it needs to be like a 3-pronged attack. So like architects need to know not to design a room that's 8 meters wide, 8 meters long, 8 meters high. You know, it needs to be something they're taught from university. Interior designers should know, okay, to create a certain mood, they need to have a certain reverb time in this space, for example. And then material manufacturers, for every single material,
they should provide, right?
You know, at least for all the standard materials, it's quite readily available. Like for gypsum board, you know, it's easy to find.
Yeah, it's true that some architects are really well aware. Like they're saying, okay, we put gypsum, we put some absorption in the back, and then we kind of like know that that's going to have some certain good impact and certain benefits to the acoustics of the space. But what are the means? The question is, we also spoke before about sound. I mean, it's something we cannot see. We need that guru or that wizard to come and fix it for us, right? Yeah. That's the customer's mind, and we are the wizards, right? We go there and we use our means. So we have softwares to simulate and to visualize the sound. But the funny thing, and this is something that perhaps it adds up into, probably the ignorance about someone. I mean, ignorance is like we don't care about it, and we don't care about investing money on those developments. Like, there is not enough available softwares, from my opinion, or sources or means to evaluate what's going on with sound. Like we were discussing, we have discussed many times, we are not able to simulate or to see what happens with certain frequencies, especially low frequencies, in certain rooms. Yeah. And there is no manufacturer that will provide that of software. And eventually we don't have things like scattering coefficients, like how the sound will reflect back after impact in certain shapes and certain surfaces. That's very tough to simulate. Like, I remember when I was doing my degree, finishing my degree, was I was doing the project. I was trying to study the acoustics of a church, of a big, not big, but some sort of like a medium-sized cathedral church in Toledo. in my home city, and I was thinking like, if I had to model every single little corner and every single bit of decoration that is being carved on the stone, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Unless you go with a laser. But it's even that, like you have like a laser and they will scan the whole surfaces, because they've been doing that when they, all the architects that they've been taking care of the restoration of these places, they go there and they map the whole place and they are able to get kind of like a mold. Yeah? But the softwares that we have, you and I know will be very tough to do that. Even if you achieve to put that 3D model running and working, you will not be able to assign to a combination of shapes and surfaces a scattering coefficient, how much will reflect at which frequencies, which that's the scattering pretty much.
Yeah.
So when we talk about sound, it is like we don't really know what's going on, and we know maybe more about how to put a rocket in the space and step into the moon more than what happens when sound hits
the surface.
A surface with some funny or irregular shapes. This is something like
I don't know. I mean,
it's happening.
Yeah. But in some cases, it's looking perhaps into too much detail. Considering that as soon as one person walks into a space, two people walk into a space, the parameters of that space can change. So I don't think it's possible to do, say you have a 10,000 seat venue. Would you do a simulation for a combination of up to 10,000 people sitting in every combination of seats?
No, but
it's unrealistic.
But you could do it, modulate a room, let's say an arena, a modern arena where you are going to play concerts, right? Like that's also happening. You put an arena full of concrete and plastic chairs and you say, let's do concerts here. And then the mess happens, right? And then then you say to the person or the company who owns the arena, like, oh, you forgot to put acoustics there. But they want to sell the space for doing the concert, right? And then you could do always there are some companies doing something very interesting, which are variable acoustics or even portable acoustic systems. Like you just put it there, deploy it, and you could eventually adjust it to the needs of the space. We know very well Rancid University, Sujadep, the Sala, that they have, I think is, as far as I know, it's the only variable acoustics space in Thailand. So they have invested on changing the reverberation time to allocate different functions. So you could do something like that. I mean, you could say, well, I could accommodate 10,000 people, but if I don't have 10,000 and I have 5,000 and I need more absorption, I would just change the acoustics on my place. Well, it's there, right? It's available. You can buy it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's exactly what they have. I think they have 1,000 seats, 1,000 something seats. And I mean, I don't know if they do it for the amount of people in the venue, but certainly they do it for different styles of music. So certainly it's
you could play
possible.
with both. Yeah, you could play with both. Depends on how much granularity you have on the control. Last but not least is like, we're talking about acoustics. We don't know acoustics really well. We talk about misconception. We talk about lack of misconception, lack of interest, or lack of, I wouldn't say education, but
certainly there's a lack of understanding. And I still think that it is one of the last considerations for an architect when they consider a project, or last considerations even for the owner, is acoustic treatment. By that time it's probably too late to put any in anyway, so,
or too expensive. I think we spoke a lot today. I think it's from the interest. I wanted to touch the other part, which will be electroacoustics, but I think maybe we can keep it for next time on Start Listening. And it's been a pleasure. I mean, you finished your beer
a long time ago.
I haven't finished my coffee, but I'm gonna just do it now. So
Yeah. So thank you.
next Sunday we have more beer, more coffee, or
Sounds
maybe
good.
we switch.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
next
you.
Sunday we should have the coffee machine here.
Yeah,
Maybe.
next time we will. I mean, if people are following us in Facebook, they will see we call Sonos Libra Tune on the Tuesdays. So you will see there all the updates that we are doing on the showroom. We have received some toys today, but we haven't shown yet.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for the time.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye everyone. Bye. Please follow us on Sonos Libra Facebook, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts.